So in this particular video, we are going to look at a smaller part of a bigger goal that we have for this year. And that goal is to be able to analyze the relationships between the author's message or theme, characters in the story, plot, and setting. In today's video, we're going to focus on characters or characterization. So let's take a look at what you're responsible for understanding regarding characterization. There are 4 terms that I'm going to expect you to know and use when we talk about narrative pieces, specifically when we talk about characters. Make sure you have your Reader's Toolbox guide and that you're filling that out as I go over definitions. When we talk about characters or read about characters or write about characters, I want you to think about these 4 terms. First, a character is either going to be dynamic or static. Let's take a look at what these mean. When I see the word dynamic, I think about the word dynamite. And if I would set off dynamite, you would expect big changes. So that's how I remember that dynamic means change. Dynamic characters change from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. Now, I don't mean going and getting like a makeover or a haircut. They may change their physical description, but a dynamic character is even bigger than that. When a character is dynamic, they're changing kind of from the inside. They're changing how they think, or they're changing how they act, or both. On the other hand, you may have a static character. Narratives will have characters that you can sort of count on to stay the same. And how I remember that is static. I think of static cling. You know how sometimes when you pull something out of the dryer and it stays there, it sticks like socks will stick to the towel. Static meaning stays. Static characters stay the same. So as we read stories, you can expect this character to be the same in the way that they think and behave from the start of the story to the end. On the other hand, 2 other terms, round and flat. Now, these are not physical descriptions. They are talking about how deeply we know the character. Let's start with round characters. If a character is described as round, that means the author has fully developed this character. We, as a reader, have a deeper knowing and understanding about what the character looks like, what the character thinks or feels, and how the character will act. On the other hand, a flat character is one-dimensional. There's not a lot of detail. We don't have a full, deep understanding of this character. There's just sort of one dimension to the character. When you are determining whether or not a character is dynamic, static, round, or flat, there are 3 things that you are going to be looking at. When we determine characterization, we pay attention to 3 main things in our story. The first thing we're going to pay attention to is how does the author physically describe the character. The second thing we're going to be looking for is we're going to be looking for behaviors and actions of the character throughout the story. And last, we're going to be paying attention to how that character interacts with other characters in the story. All of these things are going to help us determine what we know about the character and how we can categorize that character using our terminology. On your toolbox page, you should have defined dynamic, flat, round, and static. And then at the bottom, it asks you to think about some characters that you have read about. You might think also of characters in movies. And I want you to come up with one character in a movie or a story you've read that has changed from the start of the story to the end of the story. They've changed their actions, they've changed how they are thinking. And then I want you to think, is that character, that dynamic character, would you consider that character round, really well described, deeply described, or would you consider that character pretty flat, just one dimension to that character? I want you to do the same thing using a movie or a story you're familiar with, and find the name of a character that is a static character. And then do the same thing, decide if that character that stays the same from the beginning of the movie or story to the end, if that character is considered round or flat. We're going to share your thinking in groups, and then we're going to practice characterization with some of our own stories and examples in small groups.